Hi, this is Geekpreacher here. I'm broadcasting from my FLGS. For those of you who don't know what an FLGS is, it's your favorite local game shop. Now, my favorite local game shop is in Jackson, Tennessee. It's called Nerdvana, and it's owned and operated by James Dozier. It's a fun place to hang out. They have lots of good games. It's very family friendly. And James was nice enough to let me come in and broadcast here today. Now, the reason I'm broadcasting here is because, of course, some of you may already know, I had a little storm damage on my home, and so we're staying in some temporary housing, and this just happened to be a little bit easier and more convenient. But there are other reasons as well, because I wanted to talk to you today about dead morality and virtue. Now, I get a lot of questions about this because I spoke on this recently, and I'll be speaking on it again in July after we move to our new place. Now, what is dead morality? What is virtue? Well, C.S. Lewis put it best when he talked about morality and people asked questions about it. I've got the quote over here on my laptop, and he uses a story where it says, basically, when a young boy was asked about God, he was asked what God was like, and he said God was someone who was out there trying to stop you from having a good time. And that's about how most people view morality, as God stopping you from a way of having a good time, or a system of rules that keeps you from having a good time. So that's why I'm in a game shop. You see, behind me I have all these great rule books. Many of them are gaming books. In fact, all of them are gaming books pretty much. And they're about games and about playing games, and they're filled with rules. And these rules are a structure on how to play a game. Now, that's how morality is viewed by most people. A set of rules on how to play the game of life. Now, the reason I call it dead morality is because it's like a dead rule system. These books are no good as long as they're sitting on the shelf. These books are no good as long as you're not playing the game. If you get the rules and you sit around and you read the rules like many of us gaming rules lawyers do, you can discuss and debate the rules, and you can have a little bit of fun with that. But it's so much more fun to sit down at a table, sling some dice with your buddies, and just play. And the rules become a guideline. Well, see, that's how virtue is. And Paul the Apostle talks about virtue, and C.S. Lewis talks about virtue. I want to tell you about Paul's view of virtue first. If you are led by the Spirit, you are not subject to the law. But by contrast, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. There is no law against such things. That's what virtue is. Lewis defined virtue as the four cardinal virtues, the classic virtues that were given through Aristotelian philosophy. That's fortitude, prudence, temperance, and justice. But for Christians, we also have three theological virtues: charity, hope, and faith. Now, you see, virtue cannot be imparted to somebody by a rule system. Virtue is not about following a set of rules. It's kind of like a role-playing game. The rules are there as a guideline, and they help us, and they give us a framework in which to play in. But rules in a game don't develop character. Rules in life don't develop character. What develops character is virtue. A man who's serving on the battlefield shows his courage by defending his friends, by throwing himself on the stories we hear about someone who threw themselves on a hand grenade to save his buddies. That is courage. Those things are not rules. You can't lay down a rule and say that says if your friends are going to die, throw yourself on a hand grenade. It just doesn't work that way. Nobody's going to do it. Courage is a character development. And for the Christian, we believe that these virtues are developed in us after Christ begins to transform our life. And that's where the three virtues I'm going to speak about are really there in power. It's not about following a hard set of rules. It's about God's virtue being developed in your life. Charity, which is a great and tremendous virtue. In some Bible translations, it's translated as love. I think charity and love are two great terms to talk about this central Christian virtue. And what it means is it's a love that gives of itself, a love that gives to others. Not something that we've just laid down as a rule. You can tell someone to love someone, but when that love is worked out through kind acts, through charitable acts, through a working and living faith, then virtue is developed. You can tell someone all you'd like to not commit adultery. You can tell them and lay down that rule, do not commit adultery. Don't do this. And it's a nice rule, it's a nice framework. And in our American society, we like to think that's the framework of stability. But as we've seen recently, adultery pops up left and right. A rule is not going to keep someone from committing adultery. Virtue does. Character being built in you through the transformation of Christ. When you begin to love someone, when that begins to work through you, when you begin to have faith in the future, when you begin to have hope in the future, these things being worked into your life and flowing from your life, suddenly we don't need the rule, do not commit adultery. We don't need that rule because we have virtue that says, I love my spouse. Why would I commit adultery? I have faith that God has a future for us. I have faith in a God who will help me overcome these temptations. Why would I want to do this? I have hope. The Apostle Paul says we have self-control. We have patience. When these virtues are being formed in our lives, why would we want to commit adultery? Why would we want to do something that vile to another human being? Why would we want to hurt them or cause them pain? We wouldn't. That's virtue being flowed out into our lives. And that's what it's about. It's very much like playing a game or sitting down at a tabletop game and playing with your friends. Some of the most fun in playing a role-playing game is when you have an idea that comes up or pops up out of nowhere and you just throw it into your mix and your friends start laughing and goofing around because you just pulled something out of thin air and tried to do it. That's what virtue does. It gives you ideas and fresh insights instead of hard and fast rules. That's what virtue does. Morality gives us guidelines, but it becomes dead morality when we make these hard and fast rules that allow for no deviation. On the other hand, when we have virtue transforming our character and our lives, then we have something special. Then, if a rule doesn't seem to have all the things we need, we can move beyond those rules and work into a life that's lived out through a transformed experience with Jesus. Thanks for your time today, and if you're ever in Jackson, Tennessee, stop by Nirvana, tell James I said hello, and he'll help you find the games that you need. Take care and have a good day.